Welcome back, everyone. When we last left off, we had just finished off in the Mason laboratory. And I wanted to show you a little bit more of the guide here, or the start menu, to show you a bit more about what we're dealing with. So, if we go into status here, this is like a pretty typical status menu about the player, how many cards we have, unique cards, total playtime, and then the medals. The diary here will be how you save. You can also use save states with the virtual console, but I'm going to use the diary instead as well. Here's where you can make new decks. You can have 4 decks in at a time, it looks like. Let's see, if you go into the deck, you can modify the deck, change the name. And so here we have a little bit more of insight into our team. One thing I did notice is you can only build a deck with unused cards. It's actually very similar to Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories in that regard. You know, you can't use one card multiple times, multiple decks, which it makes the game more difficult. And here's where you have cards. So we have 120 total cards. That's a bit more because in between our last playthrough, or our last episode, I went and I did beat Aaron for some more energies just a few times, just that way I could get some more energy cards here. So you see, if we go over to the energies, we have 16 grass, 15 fire, 13 water. We have some lightning, fighting, and psychic. So we have a little bit of each one so far, of the base ones. We also have some good cards in here. So we're looking pretty solid, I would say. One thing I want to do is I'm going to take on... Oh, and also here's configuration. So we have settings. I don't want to play around with the card makers too much right now, but I did want to look at our deck, and I did want to modify our deck a bit. I want to take out Flareon. I want to take out Eevee for right. Actually, no, let's keep Eevee. But let's only do one Eevee. Keep the Kangaskhan. No, you know what? We're going to keep Meowth. Let's get rid of Jigglypuff. Jigglypuff was pretty good when we used it for Sing, but I think we'll keep it out. I want to use more of our energies here. So let's put some more energy. Let's get rid of the fire energies, and let's put in more water energy. We definitely want more energy cards here. Professor Oak. Professor Oak's good. You can discard your entire hand, which is nice. Pokeball we don't want. I think we want Bill instead of Pokeball. Pokeball, you can pick one card, but you have to flip a coin in order to get it. And I just don't know if that's really helpful. 1 revive, plus power. Okay, I think that's good. Let's try with... Oh, you know... Let's try with Bill. Okay, I think I like where our team is. We have Bulbasaur, Ivysaur, Venusaur, Caterpie, Metapod. I want to see if there are any... Alright, we have all of our guys there. Alright, there we go. Alright, so there we go. There we go. Save this deck. So it's our modified Bulbasaur and Friends deck. Yep, exactly how we want it. And I want to just play around with that for our next little run through. I also want to show you real quick here. We can actually run by holding down B, which they'll add in later games, of course. So that's the real basics. I think what I'm also going to be doing in between some of these playthroughs is playing around at some of the various areas just to see where we can see which cards I can pick up along the way. So to build some more decks and re-challenge people. The first time I go to a new place, I will certainly do it with the camera rolling, so to say. All right, let's go. I'm going to go in a clockwise fashion from the Mason Lab. So let's go to Lightning Club first. Oh, and here's Ronald. We get to meet him. Okay, looks like he's also going for the medals. It's you, Gregor. We are. Okay. All right, I don't know how he knows us or if we're supposed to know him. Welcome to the Lightning Club. Okay, well, let's see if we can, what we can learn here. The shading in the game is really cool. Gotta be a Grandmaster. All right. Oh, we could do a trade, but we don't have the Electabuzz. Okay. Huh. Let's see if we can receive a card. Oh, this is from a friend. Okay. Huh. Okay, so that's how to talk to a friend. Alright, well, it looks like we have to go up then. Alright, and here's Jennifer. Isn't Pikachu totally cute? My heart skips a beat whenever I see those cute little eyes. Oh, nope, we want to hit yes. Okay, let's take on Jennifer, who looks a whole lot like Ash Ketchum. Hey everyone, it's post-production Greg here. In playing through this portion of the game, I realized that the battles here take a long time and can also be pretty boring, especially when you lose repeatedly like I do here. So I've decided to play around with a new format for this series. I won't be cutting out the full battles, but instead I want to show them sped up with some of my commentary over top to talk about the experience I had. So with that underway, let's dive into my thoughts. Okay, so now that we're back, I wanted to discuss some of my deeper commentary on the game. So I thought that the Lightning Gym, so to say, was a little bit more difficult than I anticipated. I think this is in part because we didn't have any super effective cards and because our deck is pretty limited at this point, I'll say. So I found a lot of trouble with this first trainer here, Jennifer. She has a Pikachu, a whole group of Pikachu that are apparently resistant to the fighting type, which is what you take on here. Or not fighting, but the fighting is what is strong against the lightning type. I guess we can just call it electric at this point. But so the Lightning Club is... I found it was also difficult because in our Squirtle or our Bulbasaur and Friends set, we actually don't have many fighting type Pokemon. And so what I ended up doing was I went back through, and after I lost to Jennifer this first time, I went and trained a little bit more to get up some more energy cards. And in doing against, I believe, who's the guy that you fight? Well, I forget his name right now, but you... Yeah, anyway, I forget what the guy's name is who you end up fighting, but I ended up getting a lot more of the energy cards to build up our deck. Initially, my plan was to put together an all grass and fighting type deck, so that way I could take on have some super effective cards against the electric type in the Lightning Club, but also then so that way I could use my grass types where I had a whole lot of cards and energy. I ended up keeping the grass types because that's where I really had my strength, but also it's where I ended up not using the fighting type. As you can see there, I end up wiping to Jennifer the first time. I found that if you let her Pikachu set up, it can be really difficult. Anyway, I learned here some few interesting points. First one is that Kangaskhan is pretty powerful. Comet Punch, it requires 4 energy. However, it can be really strong and is a good way to get some immediate power potentially in your hand. One thing I really noticed from this game is that you need that power spike early on in order to be able to take on or to get an advantage, I'd say. I really enjoyed, here you can see with the Kangaskhan, you flip a coin 4 times. For every time that Comet Punch hits, it's 20 damage. For every time that it misses, it's nothing. But, most of the early Pokemon have only 40 HP or 40 counters. So, you can really do some damage, especially if you have the, it's not the Defender, but it's the other plus attacking card. So, as you can see, Kangaskhan just took out that entire guy, and that's how I beat Jennifer the first time. After you beat them, you get packs with additional Pokemon, some cards. You see there I got energy removal, and that was really good. You'll notice now that I take on Brandon, and Brandon is really where I decide that, okay, I need to reevaluate my deck here. I think at the time here, I just had too much of a scattered deck, and I also didn't have enough energy to build the deck that I wanted. What I mean by that is that I still had a lot of random fire types or water types, and those really just count as colorless energy, which when you build up a stronger deck, what you want is you'd rather still just have that grass or that psychic type if you want. So anyway, once I wipe to Brandon the first time, I end up deciding that I'm going to go back and train up for some more energy. Brandon has a pretty strong team. He likes to use plus power and defender. He also, I believe, no, it's not him. I think it's the next person in the gym who likes to use a lot of self-destructs, but that can be really difficult as well. Self-destruct was interesting. It does damage not only it not only wipes the Pokemon who uses it, it also does pretty heavy damage. I think 60 damage to the Pokemon it attacks. And it also does 10 damage to every Pokemon on the bench, which is really strong. Metapod here was interesting. It had a move where it allows you to defend yourself if you land on heads, and so it allows you to defend yourself entirely. I found that was really helpful if I wanted to build up my bench. So you can see there I wiped to Brendan, and then I decided to really reorganize my deck. At first I was going to try and build up the fighting type, but I realized that some of the fighting types were the fossils, and I didn't have a fossil base in order to evolve into an Aerodactyl or an Omanite, Omastar. And that was really difficult, I learned. So I ended up taking those away, and I eventually built a psychic deck, which ends up working really well for me, especially because I could narrow it down to just the Abra line. As you can tell, I'm sipping coffee and also reliving this playthrough as a more relaxed podcast form of the episode. One of the more curious aspects of the Lightning Gym or the Lightning Club and that I found was I didn't really find that I could use many super effective moves. Again, I didn't really use many fighting types, but I think that going forward, that's going to be how I want to. I think that's going to be a way that I decide to build up my decks. So I think I'd like to continue to build it where you have, yeah, I'll have the fighting type, for example, but then I'll have the energy where I can build that in. Moreover, I want to continue to have some cards where, or be focused on having cards that can do some immediate damage, some immediate chip damage while you build up your team. So, for example, Nidorino, or like the Nidoran male and Nidorino lines are pretty good, but Nidoran male actually can't really do much damage on his own. You get essentially what's a horn drill. I forget what they call it here, but it really does not work all that well. Yeah, you can see I wipe here again after building up my deck. So this is where I go back and train a whole lot. Aaron, that's who it is. I also learned that maybe I need to read better, but Aaron's deck is more of you don't get to pick which energy you get from Aaron. It's more so you pick which type you want to battle against. And so you end up then, that's how you can pick a pretty advantageous matchup. And then you fight Aaron with the Pokemon that you want to fight him with. And then the energy you get is just a random energy pack. That's both good and bad. You can stack the deck so that way you have a super effective deck against him and run through him pretty easily, but you don't guarantee which energy you get. In this early game, though, it doesn't really matter all that much because the energy you have is you just kind of want to get any energy. That's sort of how I luck into the Psychic deck. So I end up fighting against his Squirtle and Friends deck, which I believe is Water and Fighting. So I decided, okay, well, I have a fair amount of Psychic, and I just got some Psychic energy. So I decided, why not build that in? You can see Nidoran female is pretty good here. You just need one energy to do Fury Swipes. Fury Swipes can do up to 30. Well, there, as you can see, it does nothing. But it can do up to 30 damage, which is pretty solid for an early game while you build up something like a Kangaskhan. Here we have Nidorino, Nidorino is pretty good. I was starting to get the hang of how to build a deck. And from everything that I've seen with this game, it looks like the deck that you build gets a lot easier as the game goes on. I think it's sort of similar in this way. I think I mentioned this on the screen. Oh yeah, there you go. There's a 4-hit Comet Punch, which is awesome. But I think it's similar to Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, where in the beginning you don't have a lot of idea of what your deck is going to be. Yeah, as you can see now, you just get a bunch of energy. So you don't have a great idea of what your deck is going to turn into. You're sort of just fighting around, seeing what you can do, getting a lay of the land, and going from there. So that's really how I ended up on getting the Psychic type, was because I started fighting against his fighting types, built up a Psychic deck, and then realized Abra, Kadabra, Alakazam were all really good. Let's see, what else did we have? Yeah, the Nidorans are big in the grass types. I ended up eventually ditching some of the weaker grass types like Tangela, Oddish, things that I couldn't evolve. I started having a lot of trouble. Maybe it was against Brandon, but I think it was also against Aaron here, where I would have a deck and then I would end up not being able to get many cards to do anything. I was burning a lot of turns mid-battle, waiting to die. And that was really difficult. Whereas I found that once I had more cards in my actual repertoire, I could then start, you would get a whole lot of grass and Psychic types, the energy types. So that way it's like, okay, well, if I pull a lot of Psychic types, I'll just dump those into this Abra on the bench, or I'll dump them into someone else. And that turned into a pretty helpful strategy. So yeah, so I end up with the Lightning Club. You end up pretty easily or early on. Once I reworked my deck, I could get into a little bit more of a better setup here. I found that Isaac, who was the eventual leader, club master, he wasn't as difficult as I thought. You'll see eventually. I'm going to, I think, play through that fight, or at least show that fight. But eventually, he ends up getting he ends up getting 6 cards that you're supposed to deal with. Oh yeah, as you can see there, I lose to Isaac or to Aaron yet again. A lot of biblical names here. You have Aaron, Isaac. I wonder if we'll come across any other ones. I'm sure we'll have maybe Noah and Jacob, and go from there. But yeah. So anyway, you end up. I get a few more decks as you're fighting here. We already talked about the Nidoran line. Hitmonchan was pretty good. Again, he was an early, does not require evolution to be good. I learned that the evolution is pretty good, but it's a lot harder to get than you would think. And the problem with the evolution cards is not only do you have to draw them, you also have to wait a turn to apply the evolution. So you can't play a Pokemon and then immediately evolve it. The other issue I faced was you end up, the evolution cards can't do anything if you don't have the base Pokemon there. So they sort of just take up space. That's why I've really enjoyed the Professor Oak card. So the Professor Oak card ends up allowing you to trash your entire hand and pick up an entire new hand. Why that was really curious to me was because you could sort of deplete your hand for everything you needed, and then you have the chaff that you still have in your hand, and you can sort of discard that and then fill up all those empty slots that you don't otherwise have. So it's a great, here you can see I restack my deck, and this is really where I start to hit my stride, is once I have the psychic type. So anyway, you end up being able to scrap your entire hand, pick up all new cards, and that's a really helpful kill switch, just if you need it. Tangela was interesting because I think Tangela would be more helpful now that I've rearranged my energy, because you have Poison Whip, which will do 30 damage, or I think it does 10 damage only, but requires 3 energy, but then will poison the Pokemon. It looked like, though, maybe he uses a full heal, but when he switches out his Pokemon, here he knocks out Tangela. Once he switches out his Pokemon, they weren't poisoned anymore. Which was, I didn't really love that. You'll see, there I use the Professor Oak, which does help to retrain you. You also can use Bill, which is funny. I always had the Bill card as a kid, but I never actually knew what it did. And I really liked how it played. Like I said, I've never really played a card game before, like a trading card game. So I thought that this was pretty cool, a good way to learn how to play it, because you can just gain every single card here and learn how to play them. Nidorino was probably the strongest, outside of Kangaskhan, the strongest Pokemon I end up playing against, or playing with. So, again, this is where I then rename the deck. After I decide I'm going to do a Psychic and Grass, I name it the Dazed and Confused deck, as sort of like a psychedelic grass type, which I thought was a pretty clever deck name. So anyway, now that I have my Dazed and Confused deck, now I go back and I take on Brandon with my new Grass and Psychic deck. Now that we have Brandon, you can take down his Magnemite pretty easily. and I also build up my other guys on the bench. So from here, I don't think I lose at all. I have Nidorino, who I think he needed more energy in order to start attacking. But you end up, yeah, I should also probably mention, I do a little bit of cheese strats here. One of the nice parts of this game, though, for cheesing and resetting is that it looks like, I don't know if the computer determines what will happen before your turn or if it's predetermined. I don't know if like how the counter works, but I did find a few times I resetted and the same thing happened. So for example, if I wanted to reset coin toss and I try this out, yeah, I think I try that out here, is I reset the coin toss and it's the exact same result. And I think that helps for the cheese strats because you're not tempted to restart your cheese and restart your turn, see what happens on the flip. However, I do find that you end up, it helps me to do moves over again. So for example, if I realize, there's one time where I realize, oh shoot, I should have used a plus power here. And then once you have the plus power, you say, oh, okay, like I forgot to use that. I now can go in. Oh, I forgot I actually lose to Brandon the first time. Huh. Okay. I thought I beat him right afterward. Well, anyway, you can see that the Nidoran female ends up doing pretty well. So it knocks out one Pokemon. And then from here, I just have so much psychic energy that I'm pretty sure we can, we just blast right through him. One thing I didn't really find that was all that interesting or helpful was Nidoran female has Call for Family as its second move, and it allows you to hunt through your deck and for other Nidoran cards. One thing I want to mention here is that Zapdos is way overpowered. We end up getting this is really the turning point now that I remember, was that Nidoran female ends up getting, as you can see, 2 full hits on Zapdos, which is just incredible. So you take out 6 hits on Zapdos. The legendary birds, though, are not as strong as you would think. I believe that their turns, and I see this a little bit later, may be against Isaac, in that if you miss or you land tails, you end up doing some serious damage, or maybe you don't even damage, some serious damage to yourself. But you also end up, I think if you maybe Moltres, you end up not getting any at all. So, yeah, so there we go. We end up beating Brandon. And so it's not like you just pull that card and then all of a sudden, boom, you have Zapdos and you just run through the game and run through your opponent. It doesn't end up working that way at all. Okay, so yeah, I end up switching my deck around. Nicholas here has a pretty interesting deck. He wants to use a lot of self-destruct. However, his Geodude was weak to our grass types, which also is really curious about how grass type, like something like a Nidoran, is super effective. Like is considered a grass type and is super effective. I thought here his Magneton was going to do a lot of damage, but we end up doing pretty well, I think, with Nidoran female. Actually, he keeps using Sonic Boom, but we end up using, oh yeah, I forgot that our Metapod ends up doing some pretty solid damage for us here, which was helpful. And you can tell that the Abracadabra line ends up coming in pretty handily for us here. But yeah, so really those are my main thoughts on it. As I said, the game gets a little bit easier once you start building up your deck, which I'm hoping to continue to do here. And then I think toward the end, I'm going to actually play through. Yeah, there we go. So we beat him, we get our decks. And I think I'm actually going to play through Isaac and let you see how Isaac goes. So thanks for tuning in, everyone, and looking forward to the rest of the playthrough. Also, one other note here, you might be able to tell from our commentary on Isaac, but at this point I was pretty dejected. I realized that we probably were going to lose a lot very early on in this recording, and this recording ended up taking over 2 hours to do. So by this point, I kind of realized that maybe I wasn't going to be showing this entire video and that maybe I was going to just do this as one long video playthrough of highlights. And it wasn't until later on I decided to do some sped up commentary. So apologies in advance for some of the lighter commentary on Isaac, although I do think it picks up because it's a pretty interesting battle. All right, let's save before we get to Isaac. It's hard work, but here's our stage. All right. Let's see, Isaac. Okay, let's start off with we're gonna need 3 turns to build him up. Let's put Bulbasaur out there first. It's not ideal, but let's hope Bulbasaur can tank a few hits. Okay. Let's use Bill. Okay. Oh. All right, we are going to be playing some interesting moves. Let's do that. And then we're gonna be doing a psychic build, it looks like. It's totally fine. Totally fine. Actually, let's see. Okay, we have enough, so. Let's actually see. No, we want Kadabra. I think we want Kadabra. Wow, okay. And another Nidorino. Very nice. Super Psy. Nice. A resistance. Ugh. Alright, let's go back and let's see. Let's build up Nidorino. Let's use double kick. No. Ugh. You know what? It's a dangerous slope. Oh, let's see. Is it always the same? Ha. Okay. Interesting. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Alright, let's use Horn Drill then. And let's build up Kadabra. Put Bulbasaur on the bench. I don't know why we didn't do that before. Another Horn Drill. Plus power. Okay. Oh, no self-destruct. Oh, but it's only 40. Forgot it was only 40. Alright, let's use that Horn Drill up, baby. Let's do Super Psy. Alright, let's hope we can tank some stuff here. Alright, we can. Nice. Let's attach plus power. And then Super Psy. That'll knock it out. Way to go, Kadabra. It's gonna. Oh. Oh, yes. Wow. Damage swap. So often as you like during your turn before you attack, you may move one damage counter from one of your Pokemon to another, as long as you don't knock out that Pokemon. Wow. Yeah. you know what? No, we're gonna go back. And we're going to put Abra on the bench. Okay, and now we're gonna use the Pokemon power. Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, hold on. Nope. We're also going to use plus power and we'll knock it out. Nice. 20 damage and it's confused. I thought we would knock it out, but okay, there we go. Come on. Right, we can take that. Okay, come on. There we go. Alakazam. All right. Oh, and the Venusaur at the very end. And Greg beats Isaac after all of that. How could my lightning deck lose? How shocking. Here's the lightning medal as proof of defeating me. And here, take the booster pack too. Oh, let's see what we get here in the booster pack. Another Alakazam, Parasect, Cloyster, double colorless energy. Energy removal, Meowth, Voltorb, Pikachu, the Fossil, Kabuto, Moltres, wow. Okay, Pokemon Center. Omastar, Persian, Voltorb, Meowth, Paris. Wow. Come back and duel again. I really like our Dazed and Confused deck. This is really good. I like this a lot. I think what we're gonna do is let's get rid of Caterpie and Metapod here. Let's bump those up. Put the Abras and Kadabras, and then get some more psychic energy. Actually, no, let's do the double colorless energy. Okay, with that, I think we're gonna call it. Hey everyone, post-production Greg here again. I also want to provide an apology because, as again, I said that I got pretty dejected by this point and didn't know whether this footage was going to ever see the light of day. I didn't do a proper sign-off on this video. So I wanted to keep it in though, so you could see, but I wanted to provide a proper sign-off. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching this episode. And I look forward to the rest of this series. Don't forget to like and subscribe and tune in for the next episode. Bye. Call it. I think we're going to call it.